du meine Arbeit für richtig hältst, ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet habe, dass ich mich in diesen Jahren für dich eingesetzt.
All right, so Berlin, 1945. We're going deep today, like really deep, underground actually. Hitler's final days. Got two documentaries, Adolf Hitler, The Last Days of the Dictator, and The Final Moments of Adolf Hitler on YouTube.
Yeah, they're pretty intense. Not your typical history lesson, that's for sure. We're talking like inside the bunker, what it felt like.
Right, you get a feel for it. But first, gotta start with this crazy discovery. French officer, Commandant Raymond Rose, he finds like this hidden stash of Hitler's stuff.
In the bunker ruins? Wow.
Yeah, telegrams, letters, even Eva Braun's will. That was gone forever.
Like a time capsule, right. Buried in all the rubble.
Exactly. And get this, Rose, he made these detailed notes, maps of the bunker. It's like you're right there with him, finding this stuff.
That's a whole other dimension, huh?
Totally. Sets the scene for what life was like down there. Speaking of which, the documentaries, they don't hold back on describing the Führer bunker.
It's wild, right? You've got this, like, mix of luxury and total despair.
I know. Cramped, damp, machines running constantly, but then, like, expensive rugs, artwork. Bizarre.
Trying to keep up appearances, I guess, even with the Soviets closing in.
Surreal is the word. And in the middle of it all, Hitler. The documentaries, they really show how bad his health was getting.
Oh, yeah. Parkinson's, the drugs. I mean, you see it in the descriptions. Trembling, gaunt.
Not exactly the image we're used to, right?
Nope. Makes you wonder, though, how much his health played into his decisions those last days. Was he really in control?
That's a good question. I mean, we know Eva Braun went down to the bunker with him. What'd you think about her story?
I found her letters really fascinating. They found some written to a friend. You get this sense of, like, her inner struggle, you know, despair, hope, but also this intense devotion to Hitler.
Yeah, it's complicated. And then there's her will. She's planning for the future, but
there was no future, right? At least not the way she imagined it.
makes you think. It's like, even in that situation, she's trying to hold on to some control.
It's powerful. We're talking about war, dictators, but it's the personal stories that sometimes hit you the hardest.
Absolutely. Love, loyalty, fear. It's all there. And sometimes that's even more compelling than the big historical events.
Couldn't agree more. And speaking of compelling, we got to talk about Goering. Things get really interesting with him and Hitler.
Yeah, you can practically feel the power shifting.
Yeah.
Hitler weakening, and Goering, well, he sees his chance. Tries to take over, actually.
Bold move, citing that old decree, naming him successor if something happened to Hitler.
Talk about high stakes.
Yeah.
But then you've got Bormann, right? Hitler's secretary working behind the scenes, turns Hitler against Goering.
Bormann was ambitious, to say the least. Saw Goering as a threat.
He even issued a secret order, apparently, to have Goering executed after Berlin fell.
Ruthless. Shows how, even with everything falling apart, they were still fighting each other for power.
It's crazy, right? But while all this is happening outside the bunker, you've got the Soviets closing in, the bombs raining down.
Yeah, the documentaries really capture that sense of, like, impending doom. It's palpable. Everyone's exhausted, scared.
It's like two different worlds, right? The bunker and then, well, reality. And they're about to collide.
Wow.
One thing that stuck with me, Hitler's last public appearance on his birthday.
Awarding Iron Crosses to those Hitler youth, some of them barely teenagers.
Shelling, right? The city's falling apart.
Yeah.
And it just shows the power of propaganda.
Absolutely. Delusion, desperation. Then you've got Speer, Hitler's architect, goes to the bunker, risks his life to admit he disobeyed Hitler.
Yeah, the scorched earth orders. Speer refused to destroy Germany's infrastructure.
It's interesting, isn't it? You see a crack in Hitler's authority, this close confidant defying him.
And Hitler. He's strangely passive about it.
Maybe he was resigned to defeat by then, or maybe he saw it as like the final nail in the coffin. Who knows?
Then there's Hanna Reich, the famous pilot, lands her plane near the bunker. Hitler gives her a cyanide capsule.
Heavy. The weight of the situation, right. Even those closest to him, they knew it was over.
Yeah. And then, the final act. The marriage to Eva Braun. Just hours before.
It's almost hard to comprehend, you know? Such a hurried, somber ceremony.
And then the will. Hitler laying out his beliefs, his justifications, even as everything crumbles.
Disturbing, yeah. Blaming the Jews, the Allies. No remorse.
Just clinging to that ideology until the very end. But here's something else. The Soviets, they had no idea Hitler was even in the bunker.
Right, they were focused on the Reichstag. thought that's where they'd find him.
It's wild to think about. What if they hadn't found him?
It adds to the mystery, doesn't it? All the chaos, the confusion of those last days. But as the Soviets got closer, Hitler, he knew it was over. In his will, he makes it clear. He and Eva Braun, they choose death over surrender.
And that's exactly what happened. Poisoned his dog Blondie, said goodbye to his staff, then with Eva Braun in his private quarters.
A gunshot. Hitler shot through the temple, Eva Braun dead beside him.
Just like he ordered, they were taken out, burned in the Chancellery Garden. The end of a horrific chapter. But then there's Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda minister. He becomes chancellor.
But it doesn't last long. He and his wife Magda, they follow Hitler's example.
They poisoned their 6 children and then themselves.
Yeah.
It's hard to grasp that level of devotion, delusion.
It speaks to the power Hitler had over them, even in death. And even after his death, the impact was felt. Stalin kept the details of Hitler's suicide secret.
Which led to all sorts of conspiracy theories, right? People thought he escaped.
It's amazing how his shadow lingered, even after he was gone.
I know. Tough to think about. But that's the thing with these deep dives, right? Like, you got to go beyond the surface, get into the messy stuff. And you know what's crazy? The Führer bunker, this place where all this happened, they didn't preserve it or anything. It became a parking lot.
Really? A parking lot?
Yeah. Like, they just want to pave it over. Forget it even existed. It's kind of ironic when you think about it. This symbol of power, just gone.
I guess it makes sense, though. Who wants a constant reminder of that?
True. But later on, they did put up some signs. To mark the spot, at least. Acknowledge what happened there.
Good. We can't just pretend it never happened, right? Even if it's painful. Got to learn from it.
Exactly. So, okay, big question. Why does all this matter now? Why should we care about, like, the details of Hitler's last days? Or Eva Braun's letters?
It's easy to forget, but history, it's made by people. Real people. With their own, issues, hopes, whatever. It's not just dates in a book.
Right. It's about the choices they made and what those choices led to.
Exactly, and the effects of those choices, even today. We focus on the big names, but think of all the other people.
Oh, yeah. Caught in the middle of it all. The people of Berlin, the soldiers, families torn apart.
We need to understand their stories, too. That's how we get the full picture.
It's about empathy, too. Trying to see things from their perspective, even if it's hard. Makes you think, right? One thing that really got to me, Hitler, he was so obsessed with destroying all his personal stuff.
His diaries, letters, all that. Why do you think that was?
Control freak? Maybe. Didn't want anyone to know his secrets.
Could be. Or maybe he wanted to protect the people who were still loyal to him. Who knows?
We might never know for sure. But it makes you think there's still so much we don't know. Even about something like this.
That's what keeps history interesting, I guess. There's always more to discover.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I think we've done our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us.